So Modi ji is back from a state visit to the United States after substantive bilateral, that is India-US level, plurilateral, that is Quad level, and multilateral, that is UN level engagements. So this three-day visit by the Indian Prime Minister resulted in two detailed, expansive and substantive joint statements. Quad took a tough view on China despite not naming China and added layers of enabling frameworks to implement a free, open and inclusive Indo-Pacific vision by the new MDA initiatives, among many others. Bilaterally speaking, the key takeaway is a groundbreaking semiconductor fabrication agreement, which could enable India's transition from a chip taker. Right now, we import about 1 billion US dollars worth of chips annually, to a chip maker. This shift carries significant strategic implications, signaling India's role in shaping the evolving global digital landscape. It's crucial to recognize that those shaping this still developing and unregulated digital order will eventually dominate the global security and the global economic order as well. And if you look carefully, in this context, multipolarity doesn't seem to apply. India has aligned with nations that prioritize open and transparent systems and regulations. Now, while it's too soon to predict the exact contours of 21st century digital diplomacy, it's likely that democracies and proponents of a rules-based international order will have to unite against authoritarian regimes like the CCP and, uncomfortably for India, some of its new allies as well. The sheer nature of the digital order is such that ethical and value-laden considerations are interwoven in its various components of critical and emerging technology, artificial intelligence, and their like. But you know what? Not everybody is happy with PM's visit and its outcomes. The commentary following the Prime Minister's visit largely falls into two categories. The first includes analyses on the groundbreaking defense and technology partnership India has developed with the US over the past 1 decade and its many implications. But the second category, however, consists of critics who argue that India should not trust the US, citing the sanctions imposed in 1998 and its involvement in regime changes worldwide, with Bangladesh being the latest example. These critiques claim the US is forever plotting to destabilize India, this time around by overthrowing Sheikh Hasina over a small, obscure island called Saint Martin, which was made famous when commentators began speculating about US military plans there. Following this, if you remember, amateur YouTubers posing as strategic experts fueled this narrative with sensationalist videos about sinister America. In my opinion, while this does reflect India's democratic spirit, where free expression thrives, it offers little substantive reasoning for New Delhi's deepening alignment with the broader West, particularly the US. Still fresh and warm, these convictions have free-flowed in Indian strategic discourse, despite the US Department of State rejecting all such allegations and the Indian intelligence agencies themselves pointing at China and Pakistan. So this mistrust Ram Kahani is fixated in the geopolitics of the Cold War, overconfident decoding of American deep state, and the tendency of questioning selective narratives while accepting others as gospel. Besides, lack of a national security strategy is also a reason why everyone here feels to take whatever route they feel is justified. But what is interesting is that both sides, despite their opposing views, are motivated by a genuine belief in what they consider to be India's best interests. A month ago, Raksha Mantri Rajnath Singh was in the US for signing two key agreements: the Security of Supplies Arrangement called the SOSA and a Memorandum of Agreement regarding assignment of liaison officers. And this is pretty much in continuation of the growing defense bonhomie between India and the US. In recent years, the two sides have signed crucial agreements like the NSA-steered ISET on critical and emerging technology, Indus-X on technological innovation, and an ambitious defense industrial roadmap that has seen inking of a critical deal on jet engines, drones, and other munitions, amid many other things. But what was particularly striking at that time were the candid statements made by the defense minister. In a political culture where evasive responses filled with qualifiers and hesitations are often preferred over straightforward answers, his clarity surprised many. He stated unequivocally that only the collaboration between India and the US can ensure global peace, prosperity, and stability. In a sense, the defense minister effectively affirmed that the India-US relationship is set to be the defining partnership of the 21st century, a move that unsettles Cold War loyalists who maintain a deep-rooted skepticism towards the West, especially the US. Despite their reservations, the West remains India's best option for building capabilities for countering China along the line of actual control, which is the border, where India appears to have accepted the status quo ante of April 2020 as the most feasible outcome, rather than seeking a complete resolution of the border dispute. That ship probably has sailed. Coming back, in today's scenario, India's multi-alignment is not really an equal distribution. Now, what I mean to say is that India today understands the limits of engaging Russia for balancing China, even though India's engagement of Russia will continue for a variety of other factors. Now, New Delhi's caution against placing new defense orders with Moscow can be explained by a suspected technological reliance on Beijing after being cut off from Western tech. Due to this, India-Russia engagement is set to evolve to newer areas like energy, as Delhi's new defense partnerships are being diversified with technological cooperation as the main pivot. The most enduring legacy of the Modi era is likely to be the modernization of India's military and the significant enhancement of its technological infrastructure. This transformation is not only about strengthening India's defense capabilities, but also carries a clear geopolitical message. Empowering India today is in the West's interest in the Indo-Pacific region. And this is not really understood well enough by the perennial West skeptics. So to reiterate, the US-India bilateral relationship is a good example that even though India remains multi-aligned, this multi-alignment is not an equal distribution. And I'll try to explain this a little bit better. New Delhi now exhibits a strategic realism by prioritizing its national interests, engaging with both historic and new partners, but being clear about where to forge deeper and more substantive ties. It's safe to say that bipartisan support for India will remain strong regardless of who is in the White House in November. Although India will need to make adjustments to certain issues depending on the specific administration in power. Unlike what a lot of Indians think, not everything about Donald Trump is in India's favor. If Trump comes to power, India will face more trade protectionism, tighter regulation on mobility also. The attitude of the Trump administration on selling and making profits in classic Trumpian transactionalism instead on co-developing and co-producing could also be a headache for India. New Delhi currently enjoys a trade surplus with the US and obviously would not want to let go of that. However, the US policy would primarily continue in the Indo-Pacific region, where shared convergence is driving the focus on India. Contrary to theories like deep state forever is destabilizing India, it is in the US's interest to have a strong India in the region to burden share the mounting pressure on US security assistance. How should India then navigate these complexities? Amid all the goodies that the US-India strategic partnership offers, there are genuine points of frictions, most notably over the overblown Khalistani issue and the Pannu controversy. And no matter what, they are stoked all the time. Then there are Indian reservations on America's obsession with the democratic backsliding in India that has always touched a rather raw nerve here throughout the Modi years. However, that is more a problem of strategic communication than any real danger to bilateral ties. Democracy inherently involves accommodating dissent related to our respective images, methods, and democratic experiences. Ultimately, the proof of the pudding should be in the eating, meaning that as long as our policy decisions, initiatives, and frameworks can withstand scrutiny, there should be no reason for India to feel uneasy about another democracy critiquing its practices. This discomfort often arises from a misunderstanding of how such criticism from the US is typically aimed at addressing its own domestic audiences and lobbies back home. Engaging in critical discussions is a vital part of the democratic process. In India, we do this regularly, and it's a strength and resilience we should take pride in, rebutting condescending attitudes in clear terms whenever need be. That all democracies will behave like we would want them to behave could be a preferred, but it's not really a realistic yardstick to assess critical drivers that fuel and shape this crucial partnership. Therefore, to the question, should we trust the US, must always have a geopolitical and a geostrategic answer rooted in strategic realism, not conspiracy theories or the bygone antics of the Cold War. India needs to move ahead in time with a clear, precise, and focused commitment to national interest. I will be back to discuss this and more. Stay tuned.